And it kind of gets back to how the whole monoline thing started. I mean, I was doing it because I love to do it. I was figuring it out and not even realizing it at the time that I was figuring out something that could become what it has become for me today. But just for the love of it. And I think if you lose the love of, graphic design, you have no business being in the business.
What's going on? You're listening to episode 79 of the Perspective Podcast, and I'm your host, Scotty.D.Russell of Perspective Collective. This show is about carving out time to build something for yourself, and I want to share what is and isn't working for me, along with sharing my guest point of view. This platform also allows me to cast the spotlight and celebrate those creating big waves in the community through interviews and a weekly dose of inspiration in the outro. So stick tuned to the end, because it could be you. And I want to start this episode off by just giving a massive, genuine, heartfelt thank you to you, the listener. This podcast has far exceeded any of my expectations I've had for it, and it's because of you listening, sharing, backing the show on Patreon, and leaving reviews over on Apple Podcasts /iTunes. You've helped this show massively grow and helped me grow and find my voice along with it. This show has connected me with so many of you that I talk with on social media, emails, or even we get to link up at conferences. You have no idea how much it means to me being a little dude from Iowa who's just trying to leave his imprint on the world. So for real, thank you from the bottom of my pizza-loving heart. Thank you. I pursue this podcast because I love it. I pursue drawing and creating because I love it. Being a creative, you got into this whole mess because you tried it, you loved it, and you figured it out along the way. Sometimes along the way, you forget why you loved it in the first place, and you can steer off course for a season or maybe even a few years. Believe me, I've been there, as it's so easy to also get wrapped up in the validation of creating for others on social media instead of creating what you're vibing to. When you give yourself permission to play, fuck up, and experiment, amazing things can happen. Cue today's guest, my man Brian Steely of Steely Works. Brian is the most chill, down-to-earth rock stars in the creative game right now. He's done work for big brands like Element Skateboards, Toyota, Nike, and for big bands like Fish, Mumford & Sons, and My Morning Jacket, to name a few. However, he's not too proud to throw down with your average Joe brand looking to make a splash. He's made a name for himself with his monoline badge work that seems to have taken the internet by storm. And today, in this episode, we cover topics of his illustration and branding process, not losing the love of why you do what you do, building others up over viewing the world as a competition, having some grit and sticking it out, and so much more. He's a rad dude, a great friend, and he drops a gold mine of takeaways that light a much needed fire under your ass. You can find the show notes to this episode containing a heaping buffet of Brian's work and everything we reference in this episode at perspective-collective.com/79. If you think someone can find value in this episode, please give it a share on social media. It's because of your word of mouth that the show keeps growing, and you know I love you for it. Finally, if you catch some inspiration from the show, create some work and tag me at Perspective Collective on Instagram. I'll give it a share where I post each week's episode artwork and make sure you get some credit. Let's get into the show. What's going on? Today I'm joined by illustrator and design wizard Brian Steely of Steely Works. I'm stoked to finally get you on the show, brother. Anyway, what's new?
Everything's going up. I've got Steely Works is in its second year now, and doing good. Everything's fine on all cylinders, so no complaints over here.
Well, for those who don't know, can you give a brief Wikipedia page summary about yourself and all the cool shit that you create?
Sure. I'm Brian Steely. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. I remain in Atlanta, Georgia. I went off to college in Clinton, South Carolina, and was an English major, and came back and to do graphic design. And just been going ever since. Been at the same agency for almost 20 years now, which is kind of unheard of. So I've got 2 kids, and I'm married and have a dog.
What's been like the crooked path that's gotten you to where you are today, working full time? It's Jackson Spalding, right?
Yes. So my story is kind of interesting. I was always loved art my whole life, just like been so into it. Growing up, I had to win the little art competitions as a kid, and with every kid, you kind of get steered away from the creative side. I feel like it happens a lot to everyone. It's going one direction, like, all this art's going great, and then your parents are like, oh, you should get into business, or you should become a lawyer, or something like that. And that didn't happen to me, but when I was in high school, I had a teacher had a buddy who was a kind of a class clown, and I sat next to him and got in trouble in the art class, and I ended up getting a low grade in the art class. And I was the first low grade, so I didn't get in the advanced art class. So then I was like, oh, maybe I should be an English guy and write and do all that. So I got into writing and went to school to become a writer. Got an English major, got out of school. All the while I was doing gig posters for bands and still trying to keep up with my art stuff. Doing figure painting classes and figure drawing classes and stuff like that. Got out of school at Jackson Spalding. It was Jackson Spalding Ledley at the time, which was a full-on PR firm. I quickly realized that PR was not for me. And the graphic designer was leaving at the time. I didn't even know what graphic design was. That's how lost I was at the time. I mean, when the internet was around and all that, goodness, it told where you could find out anything in a matter of seconds. So it's a little behind the curve. So the graphic designer was leaving at Jackson Spalding Ledley, and they asked me if I wanted to be the graphic designer because I could draw. And I was like, I don't. That's how it works. I think I need to go to school. So I started at the Portfolio Center. They asked me to see my portfolio. I enrolled a couple posters that I had done, and that was my portfolio. And they took me in. I was working 30 hours at Spalding Ledley and time classes. I was sleeping on the floor at the office some nights. It was probably the 2 toughest years of my life, but well worth it.
Yeah. Do you still draw by hand today? I know a lot of people wonder that.
I do. By hand. I'm like, if I have anything laying around.
I never see anything outside of your digital work.
Yeah, no, I always start off with a sketch. Not always, but like probably 75% of the time I start off with a sketch. And, quickly you just get that scan and trace it and refine.
Yeah. All right. Well, that already answers some of the people's questions that I had. I had like 3 people ask the same question, how does your process start off? And, it always starts with the sketch. That's reassuring for me. I've been in the digital world now, and Procreate has been so much quicker for my thumbnail sketches, but I miss just drawing in like field notes or something, at a small thumbnail, Scott.
Yeah. I always like, I'll do sketches for a couple of days, just do thumbnails, and then I'll move on to the computer. I love drawing by hand because I think you miss something if you don't start off by drawing by hand. The flip side of that is I definitely sometimes will have an idea in my head already that I can quickly vector, and it's just a simple design, and I'll go straight to the computer sometimes too. So
you've been at Jackson Spalding then ever since the beginning? Is this the only place you've been at?
Yeah. So Jackson Spalding, when I started, had 9 people per person, and it's 160 or 170 people now, and that's including our creative team is 27, I think. So we've got a video team, full-on agency now versus being a PR firm. Kind of like went from, a lot of agencies will add the PR arm. We added the creative arm. So kind of like was part of that from the beginning. We added a designer. It was me and my buddy Mark for a while, and we did that by ourselves for 3 years. And then we added another person. It was just kind of like growing growing as we needed new people, like I guess like everybody does. But I feel like I've been on like at 8 different agents, grown, and we moved probably 6 times since I've been here. So every space is a little different.
Well, I know we briefly talked about it before we hopped on, and in the past, like with Steely Works, you know, and you're doing your own freelance on the side. Like, how were you able to manage holding down a day job and kick out waves of fresh art for massive clients? And how, you know, you told me that it's kind of different now, how you've kind of weaved that into your day job. So, you know, how was that before, and then where is it at today, holding down, you know, freelance and the day job?
Well, you know, at Jackson Spalding, I was doing a client work, which there's nothing wrong with that. I really enjoyed it, but I got to the point where I needed to get more in touch with my traditional side while still maintaining a design kind of feel to it. So I started sketching again and started drawing. Then I started doing the monoline thing, and just started putting it out there just because I was making up businesses, just doing it out of pure love, nothing more, not trying to make any money, and just kind of putting it out there. And it got traction. People started asking if they could the illustrations, and I'm like, sure, you can buy that if you want it, you know. And then it snowballed from there, you know, getting calls from Element, and you know, then bigger clients, and Monster Children reached out to me, and just it grew organically. I never intended it to do that. It was just like an avenue for me to kind of stay in touch with my art side.
Was Instagram kind of the key that exploded you like it was for me?
Instagram was really Dribble was to me, but I'd you know, somewhere between the two were my launching pad. It started really taking off, and I was doing it on the side, and you know, we have a rule that you can only charge so much freelance. So I was charging the maximum I could at the time,
and what was that, like, just under $1,000, like $9.99 or something?
Yeah, it was under $1,000, and
people were just getting discounts off of Brian's work. I would have hired you for everything.
So it just got to the point where I'm like, man, I can't maintain. I had two younger kids at the time, and still have the 2 younger kids, but I wanted to watch them grow up, and I was working office 40 hours in the office, and it was just not working. So I went to, this was about a year in, I went to Jackson Spalding. I'm like, hey, I'm either gonna have to leave and do this, what I'm passionate about, or I can bring all this in the office, we work out a deal, and I'll do this as my day job and still help out when I'm slow with the JS work as well. And that way you guys will have these bigger clients, and I will in turn have the back of JS. I'll have the you know, the digital side that I need. I'll have writers. I'll have you know, animators. All that stuff is helpful to me. So it's like I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of situation. We have a lot of love for all these people because I've been here for so long. So it's a bunch of super intelligent people that I just don't want to walk away from the situation. So
did they welcome it with open arms when you shot it to them?
They did. We came up with an agreement. It was very fair, and signed up on the dotted line, and we're in year number 2. So
that's awesome, and it probably allows you to get a lot more than just that $9.99 cut of things, because you were working with not only Element but the NFL. Was it Nike with all those NFL designs? Like, that's probably my favorite.
And with those clients like Nike, getting that into the office, and just it would be a Jackson Spalding thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, you know, here's something that I'd get a little cut of it, do it in the office, which is the full amount of what I should be getting. So with the smaller clients, you know, it was different. It was the $9.99 deal.
So when you get new work in, does it all just funnel in? Like, does Jackson Spalding kind of serve as like an agent now if stuff comes in, if people request to hire you?
No, I do still. I'm doing the contracts. I do, you know, work out the agreement. It's So essentially, how a boutique agency within the agency. I've got the resources of Jackson Spalding when I need them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. So in a sense, you're still operating out of yourself, but you just have more resources around you with a chance to get more the pay that you deserve.
Right. And I still get my salary, and then I get additional worked into the agreement. So it's a great deal for me. It's a win-win situation, really.
So what other kind of work at Jackson Spalding, when client work is slow, what's like the normal kind of work that you do?
I'll do some illustration work for Toyota from time to time. Done some stuff for Chick-fil-A. Still do some stuff for some pest control companies, which is fun. I art direct some. I just kind of I mentor some of the younger designers here. Just kind of daily stuff that I was doing before is kind of the same. I just pick up wherever I'm needed when it comes in.
How did you kind of hone in on your infamous monoline style? Like you thrive at so many different styles, but what was it was it just experimenting, or has that kind of always been your grind and your go-to when you just draw growing up?
It was I was trying out just a lot of different things at the time. I was doing a lot of hand lettering stuff, and Wells Collins, who you probably know, was working at Jackson Spalding at the time, and we were kind of lettering together, and I was like, this guy's kicking my ass. So,
do you got some of that in the archives? I would love to see some of your lettering.
Oh yeah, sure, I definitely do. You look back on Dribble, you'll see some of it.
All right, I'll do that.
But it wasn't anything like what Wells was doing, and I didn't get frustrated, but I was just like, I've got something too. I just need to find what it is, and so I just kept on plugging it away, and I'm drawn to the simplicity of the monoline style. It's kind of like an archetype for everything, it's a framework that you can build off of. So like if the style, I don't see the style dying, but if it does, it's still a template for building bigger things off of, if that makes sense.
You've kind of set a trend. I know you see it too, scrolling through Instagram. You see all kinds of monoline badge works now. There's tons of them.
I do. I like it. Some stuff, and I see other stuff where somebody's like traced exactly what I've done, and it's kind of frustrating. But a lot of the stuff's really good that's out there, and it's fun to see.
Yeah, is it kind of weird? Like you feel like you almost sparked a little bit of a movement. I see a lot of people who kind of like find their unique style, and then it's everywhere all of a sudden. Yeah,
it's neat to see. It really is, and I'm just a part of the movement. I'm not the whole thing, but. It's fun to be a part of it for sure.
Well, something I do a little bit of digging on people before I like ask the questions and stuff, just to especially get to know you a little bit better, even though we've chopped it up for multiple years now, the early days of Instagram. But this stood out to me on your webpage, your About Me part. It talks about you're a disciple of simplicity, believing in eliminating the unnecessary so that the necessary can speak loud and clear. And I'm one who gets lost in the detail. I'm absolutely terrified of white space. I want to fill that shit up. How do you go about simplifying your work? Because honestly, you still do a ton of detail, but yet it's all simple. I just like everything is so perfectly placed.
It's and it's unfair to say the simplicity thing, because I do a lot of detail work as well. But my favorite stuff to do is the minimal amount of lines that are needed. If I say I'm doing an animal face, I look at the animal and I pick the only lines that need to be there. And then some clients want 5,000 more lines, and some clients are cool with just like me doing what I want to do in like 12 lines, and there you go, you got the animal's face. And it's just picking out those lines that are important and making them work. That I think that I feel like that's where my gift lies.
It's ditching the unnecessary.
Yeah, and just like being good with it,
How do you know what is unnecessary, or is it just like a gut intuition now?
I'll have a lot of lines and I'll start deleting,
You go to that extreme point and then you scale back?
a lot of times. And sometimes I'll do like, I don't know, like my Airwalk badge I did for the bicycle company, frame builder. I drew that. I just did that one straight up on the computer. I didn't have any kind of sketch. Oh, I did a few thumbnails, but like I started it, like didn't scan anything, just went straight to the computer and was like looking at what I had done. But it's like one of those things where I just did minimal lines, and that's what makes it work. It's not, it's let the lines speak for themselves, and don't add too much.
Yeah, I'm still working on that because I vibe off people's whose work is super detailed as well, and I'm really trying to pull back on that area because I go a little trigger happy sometimes. And working in the analog world, which I had been heavy in for the first couple years, you know, there's no Control Z or Command Z in that area. So I mean, in the vector world, you get to play and delete as much as as much as you want.
I get trigger happy too. I mean, I definitely design some things that have a million lines, and I walk away and my hand hurts real bad from like pulling points all day, you know.
Yeah, in Illustrator.
Yeah, oh yeah. And there's beauty in both sides of it. People started considering me an illustrator. I consider myself more of a branding guy, and I've just kind of gotten pegged recently as an illustrator. But I'm more like, I like the less detail and the easier, the 5 or 6 lines that form something that hopefully comes together and forms something amazing. It requires a lot of work, and just as much work as pulling the million lines, but it looks much more simple. In
Illustrator, I got to ask, this is a side question too. Like, are you just a shortcut keyboard command wizard? Do you set up your own, keyboard commands and like the function keys, or?
No, I suck at it. I'm simple Illustrator. I use the pen tool. I use the scissors a lot. And I use the shapes a lot, and I just make those elements work together. And then once I get it together, then I can go back in and refine curved corners, add effects. Like, and when I say effects, like a roughen, or take it into Photoshop and throw some noise into it and bring it back into Illustrator.
Yeah, you did like a tutorial or something on that a while ago. I felt like that was one of the first things I found was you doing that noise effect and then bringing it back into AI.
Yeah, I've just told. I don't know that I've ever done a tutorial on it, but I've told people about how I go about doing it. And it just kind of roughens it up and makes it look, like a lot of times I call it the dirty effect. Like I'll present the client the clean version, and then I'll give them the dirty version too. So they can use whichever one they want. And still, it's the same logo. It's just like a little roughened up.
A little texture to it. Gritty.
Yeah, a little texture. It makes it look a little more hand-drawn. And I think that there's a movement to, with the swing to digital, there's also the pendulum starting to swing back to like people wanting that hand-drawn, people wanting the more organic. And I know you've seen this as well. And that's my way of like, after I draw something and after I go in and refine it and clean it all up and vector it, then I go back and roughen it back up again. So it's kind of counterintuitive, but it's
it still delivers that human imperfect touch. People still want that, especially in like the digital age where everybody has the same font in their logos or typeface that they're using on their website. It just gets bland. Like, how can you stand out?
Right. And I use like the analogy of, if you're looking at a painted wall and it's perfect, and then you're looking at a painted wall that's dinged up and has like a little graffiti and some scratches and some other color in it, what's more visually appealing? It's going to be the one that's not perfect, right? People are drawn to things don't have to be perfect. Humans are not perfect, so to have something that's a little off, to have little imperfections in it is kind of cool when it's this perfectly symmetrical piece to begin with.
Yeah.
To take it and kind of fuck it up a little bit.
Well, and you operate in like a very symmetrical world with a lot of your work. You somehow each piece has balance, whether it's asymmetrical or not. Are you pretty much your own worst art critic on things too, or do you take it pretty easy on yourself too and allow that imperfection to shine through? Because I'm like a super strict on my shit and beat myself up at times.
I follow the rules, but I also like to break them. I do like to have some imperfections because I think, and when I say imperfections, I don't mean like in kerning and things like that, although I'll mess that up from time to time too. But just like little things here and there that are just human elements that make it real. And I think it's important to be real in design, and not to be too glossy and polished. I think that's something that's important.
And live that hyper curated feed, because that's really hard for me. If you scroll through something like Instagram and you treat it as a tool or a business, just that hyper curation I've talked about with other people, like that's just not me. I think you're like that too. You have like a similar style and aesthetic in each one of your pieces, but like you let yourself go and experiment and not afraid to push the boundaries.
Yeah, I throw up whatever's I feel like throwing up, and I think that's a good one of my big advantages. It might be one of my Achilles heel too, but I'm not scared to show stuff and have it look different than the time before. And if you look through my feed on Instagram, it looks very different.
You're not posting to please.
No, I'm posting because I'm proud of what I'm doing, but it brings me business. But I'm posting because I'm like, maybe somebody can learn something from this, or maybe I've learned something from this, and I'll go back and I'll see it like 2 weeks later, and I'll see like, oh shit, man, that kerning was way off, and I'll leave it up just because I think it's important to grow and to see, for younger designers to see that we're not perfect. We make mistakes. And, I know there's a lot of designers out there that would slap me for saying that, but I think that's just important.
I'd rather it err on the real transparent side of shit and stop like putting up this fake wall. Like your shit doesn't stink. You don't make mistakes. And all you do is land dope ass client jobs. That's not relatable to people.
And people are like, oh, do you only take these clients? I'm like, no, I'll take anybody that's willing to pay me. For the most part, I will take. And I love collaborating with the smaller clients, to be honest with you, because they're the ones with the crazy ideas that let me do my thing and and work with me. And it's magical.
What's your thought on doing like pro bono work versus like free work or full price? What's your thoughts on that? That seems to be a big topic, and a lot of different opinions on that.
I do pro bono work from time to time. It's usually when I have the availability, or it's a cause that means something to me. I like Virunga reached out to me about they need money for the gorillas. So I did some stuff for them. Didn't know much about them, but watched the documentary on them, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'd like to do something for them. And then I do a bunch of stuff for friends. I do stuff for my kids' schools. I do a lot of pro bono stuff just in that realm. And then occasionally if somebody reaches out to me that doesn't have any money, I'll help them out. But it comes overbearing sometimes with the amount of people asking for free shit. That just don't understand that you got to make a living too.
Mm-hmm. Or I don't know if you get it anymore, but this could be great exposure. I think you're like well known enough now that people aren't going to fuck with you with that. Hopefully not, but like I tend to get that often.
No, I still get that for sure. And sometimes it's something that I really am interested in doing, and I'll take it on. I still do it for the love of doing it, but at the end of the day, you still got to make your salary. And you've got to feed the family. So
that's kind of the answer I was looking for, because I'm on that same boat. Like if I wouldn't have taken on my first 2 or 3 murals for free, like I wouldn't be, getting paid decent money for doing murals now. Because at a point, whether it's for a good cause or, you're helping someone like that, it's also, you got to show that you can do the work.
Exactly.
Out of the love for it too. And I think a lot of people are just like, I want to do murals, but this person won't pay me what I'm worth. And I'm like, how the fuck do they even know what you're worth when you've never done one before? No,
and I've done the one mural I did with a buddy of mine. I did it for free and didn't even put my name on it. We just did it for our neighborhood, and just slapped up there because I wanted to. It's like something different. You want to try something new. And like you're saying, you have to do it a couple times before anybody's going to pay you to do it, because nobody's going to pay you to do something you've never done before.
Yeah, it's like riding a bike with training wheels, man. Eventually you got to take it off, but you got to show you can do it before you go and, put some ollies or some jumps or some ramps.
Right. And it kind of gets back to how the whole monoline thing started. I mean, I was doing it because I love to do it. And I wasn't looking for money. I was making my salary, but I was figuring it out and not even realizing it at the time that I was figuring out something that could become what it has become for me today. But just for the love of it. And I think if you lose the love of, graphic design, you have no business being in the business.
I'm not going to lie. I'm writing that down. This question comes from Anna Kate Bryan. Do you have any tips for owning a style that stands out on its own and how to use that as a marketing tool to attract clients? And we've kind of talked about this, experimenting and doing it for the love, but were you just throwing out monoline work out there to attract future client work? Cause you've attracted a lot of client work from that.
No, I mean, like I said, I was doing it for the love, and I was also doing it because just to try something new. Like we hit on that too. It's finding my place in the design world. I've been a designer for almost 20 years, and I knew how to do a lot of different styles and a lot of different things. But I wanted something that I could kind of like manipulate and own and change and grow and evolve. And it just happened to land on the monoline thing. Like Wells landed on his hand lettering thing, and he's just killing it in that. I just started doing the monoline thing, and it just, as you do it and do it and do it, it will evolve, and you will figure out different ways and different techniques and different things, different ways to make it your own, if that makes sense. Like the textures I apply. And I mean, for a while I stopped doing textures just because, I don't know. I was just like, not everybody needs a texture on their logo.
What I really like is like, you not only do like the animals, but I'm a big outer space junkie, and I like it doing like the UFO scenes or the cannabis scenes. Like it just seems like some of the most fun artwork that all started from just experimenting.
Yeah, I just did a huge piece for Salesforce. They've got this huge, like 55-foot screen in their lobby in their San Francisco headquarters. It's a digital screen, and there's UFOs in it, and there's rocket ships, and there's all kinds of crazy shit going on. There's speakers that have propellers on them that are floating around. And
what kind of mindset were you in when you did that stuff?
Completely sober. and a disco ball with propellers, and one of their little characters playing a flying V, and like just all kinds of things going on, just taking you through this whole scene. They said they wanted it to be like It's a Small World, so I was trying to create something like that in my own vision, and hopefully we'll get to animate that, because then it will really come alive for them.
Do you got a little animation skills up your sleeve too, like After Effects or Cinema 4D? Do you know any of that, or is it all team?
It's all team. I know what I want it to do, and I've got a buddy in the office that's really good at it, and so I let him do his thing with it. I'm like, we'll like on a project before I even start, like if I know it's going to be animated, I'm like, I'm thinking about doing this. Can you do that? And he's like, yeah, I can do that.
Do you got to like break each thing down into a separate layer? That way he can import it in, or does he do all the cleaning up of the...
He just does all the cleanup for me. He takes it and like does it, and I'm like, it's super impressive. I don't know how he does it.
That's
really
dope. Yeah, motion graphics just blowing my mind. Like that shit and responsive branding in the next 10 years is just gonna be massive.
It's a whole nother skill set, with the animation stuff. It's just it's mind blowing to me. Like I'll leave for the day and I'll come in the next day and I'm like, what do you think about this? I'm like, God damn, dude.
Yeah, that shit's impressive. What's next on the horizon for you that you want to test out or experiment, or continue to play with? Because the more we continue to play, the more we continue to land the work that we love. Like me, drawing pizza was play, and now I get paid to do pizza art. That's dope.
Yeah, it is. I was working on a pizza piece for you today.
Oh, no shit. Awesome. Yes, I can't wait to see it, man. Can't wait.
But I don't know. I just like I'm finding like the areas that I really like to work in. And, getting to work with like some of these bands I've gotten to work with is super cool. Getting to work, like I love doing, I love doing spirit and beer branding. I just love it.
You've been crushing those beer cans lately.
Man, the Nod Hill folks that are, in Ridgefield, Connecticut. They're so awesome to work with. They're like the dream client. They come to me with a name and they're like, we were thinking this, and like, let me go run wild with it and create something. They're like, well, what do you think if we do a gold line here? I mean, do the lines in gold. I'm like, hell yeah. So it's just like a good relationship, and more of that is what I'm looking for, is just like getting to do more bottles and more cans and just branding like breweries and even the cannabis thing. I mean, people don't like to talk about it here in the South as much, but it's the second gold rush.
Oh, dude, it's gonna be booming, and there's so much shitty cannabis designs out there. Like, they need people like us.
They're like popping up like fireworks stores, and they need us to differentiate them from the next guy. And they've got money, and it's a no-brainer, really. I don't have any problem with cannabis, and it's just only a matter of time until it's legal all over the country.
Exactly, and there's more opportunity from there coming from it. Like, if you have any spillover work, send it my way. I've been wanting to do some kind of cannabis work for the longest time.
Let's do it.
You were talking about creative freedom and stuff. Do you find it better to have some type of constraints on your work and have them like kind of provide some kind of path, or do you love it when they're just like, hey, do your thing, Brian, we trust you? For me, when I have just creative freedom, sometimes I'm like, shit, I could go this way, this way, this way, and I might create something that they don't want to see, and I just wasted all my time.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I still have to bill by the hour, and my hourly rate here is so high that it's nice to be constrained a little bit. But having those constraints, even if I didn't have an hourly rate, I like having the constraints because I don't spin my wheels for 20 hours trying to, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that.
It's the worst.
It's so bad, and this doesn't do anybody any good. It's
we know what we don't like when we see it.
Yeah,
like that fucking drives me bananas.
Oh, me too. It's crazy. And I'm like, and if you tell me something that you like, then we're in this together. We're collabing on this, and it's going to be something that is more what you dreamed of than me trying to figure out what you're dreaming about.
Throw wet noodles against the wall and try to get something to stick.
Yeah. So I like the constraints. I think it's good for me, and it's good for the client. We'll end up with a better product in the end that's more pleasing to the client, and that's what design is all about. Now, traditional art's a little different, but design, you need to create something that works for the client.
Yeah, and again, like you said, it's a more collaborative process in the end, At the end, they feel like they had a stake in it too, and then you can like go and sell them of what they asked. You can go and flex your like what you thought, and then just go and pitch it back to them. This is what you told me you wanted.
Did this.
Exactly.
This is our baby. We made this baby together.
Hey, before we jump into rapid fire question, what's one piece of advice you'd give to a creative at any stage who struggles starting or sticking with it?
When I was getting started, like a traditional artist has their 5 like canvases all going at once. You kind of move around. And you do what feels right at the time. You get your 5 different jobs or your 3 different jobs going, and if you get stalled out on one of them, go to the next one. Don't ever let yourself get designer block. Just always have something new. Always let your brain be thinking about the next project, and have a few of them going at the same time. And that way, if you get stalled out on one, you just move to the next one. I guarantee you, 5 hours later, you're going to have the idea you were looking for, or the next day that will keep you moving.
When you were, picking up and, finding your groove with the design, what kept you sticking with it when maybe you get wrapped up? Like I get wrapped up in comparison sometimes, or I'm just like, man, my work is shit. What helped you continue to stick with it?
That's a great question. I can do a twofold on this one.
Go for it, man.
I started designing again because I liked this band called Widespread Panic that some people probably heard of. They had shitty posters, and I'm like, man, I can draw better than that. So I started drawing again. I'm like, I'm going to do a poster for them. And sure enough, I did. That was my first design gig that I got paid for, technically, was a poster for Widespread Panic. And just from looking at other people's work and like knowing I am shitting on it because it was that bad. But just like getting out and dribble and seeing what other people are doing, and knowing that you're not necessarily that as good as those people, but you can gain something from looking at what they're doing and just like always having your eyes open and always looking at every day, go on to Dribble and see what people are doing and figure out your own way to doing things and make it work for you. And you can see the people that are clearly doing that on a day-to-day basis. And it's awesome to see. I have so many designers I have so much respect for that I get on Dribble. I sometimes forget now because Instagram has become such a hog for me. But I got on Dribble earlier today, and I was just like, man, people are just so freaking talented. It blows my mind. And we build each other up. We build each other up by giving each other nice feedback and encouragement and correction.
That's how we linked up in Instagram like 3 years ago. Same thing, building each other up.
Yeah, correction, helping each other up on the, and I never like to give constructive criticism right on the thing. I'll just email somebody separately and be like, hey man, you might have missed that kerning over there. You might want to pull that down. You misspelled something, or just help people out. Just help people out. That's what we're here for. At the end of the day, as humans, help each other out.
Stop approaching everybody from a perception of comparison or competition.
Right. Competition has always been a big part of my life in sports, but in the design world, it's more like I'm doing my thing, you're doing your thing. Stay in your swim lane, and I'll stay in mine, and we'll help each other out.
Yeah, that's dope, man. All right, let's get in rapid fire. I didn't write this one down, but I'm going to ask you anyway because I'm really curious. What's your favorite project you've done in the last 5 years? One that you think is the dopest, you got to experiment, the one you had the most fun on. Doesn't have to be the best pain. And what's your favorite one in the last 5 years?
I've got a couple, but I'm just going to pick one. There's a bar that's a mile from my house called the Argosy, and it's this neighborhood's it's East Atlanta. It's kind of dingy, but they put this bar in. It's they put $1 million worth of renovations into this place. Beautiful bar. They put no money into their logo, and this was 5 years ago or 6 years ago now. I walked in there and I was like, hey, I drew up these ideas because you got a clip art logo, and you've got this beautiful bar that you clearly thought every detail out of, but you got this little dinky logo and it's not working. And the guy was like, well, we like it. I was like, all right. So I went away, kind of tail between my legs. And I got a call 5 years later from the same guy asking me if I would design a logo for him for his bar. And he had no idea. He didn't remember the conversation because he probably had a million things on his mind at the time because he just opened this bar. The logo was the lead. He didn't see the value in it at the time. So I got to do the logo for the bar and got to charge him money for it.
And were you going to offer it for free the first time around?
Yeah.
Oh man, does he know that it was you now? Did you tell him?
No. He doesn't remember the conversation, but I gave him a really good deal on it anyway, just because it's a neighborhood bar and I get to come into the bar and.
Do you get a tab now?
Yeah, I get a tab now. But I walk in the door and he made it's that octopus that I did. I call it the Hoptimus, and it's got the hop head and it's holding a tulip glass in its tentacles. And he made it this 4 by 4 foot metal cutout, and it's it greets you right when you walk in the door. And it's kind of just a reminder to me that you just keep working hard and it's going to happen. It's it might not happen today, it might not happen tomorrow. I feel like a lot of millennials want everything to happen right away.
Microwave society, dog. Like a fresh slice of pizza in the microwave. It don't work that way.
We don't even own a microwave at our house. True story. But things take time, and to happen right, they really take time. So just stick with it. And it's getting kind of back to your other question. You stick with these things and they're going to work out. And that's what happened with the Argosy.
Perfect, man. Love it. That wasn't really rapid fire, so that's my fault for dropping that on you, but still, that's a great answer. That's awesome. So if you were on death row, what would your last slice of pizza be?
Ooh, I would say meat lovers with fresh jalapenos and then extra cheese. I'm not super crazy, you know.
You're not super crazy, but you got jalapenos on your pizza. All right, man. Fucking wild psycho. No, I'm just kidding. All right, script serif for sans serif. I want to take a guess at this, but
are you kidding?
Sans serif.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I knew this one.
Sans serif, but I need to have a movement back to serif. I need to make myself move back to some serif fonts.
I want to scroll back and see your lettering game too. I have to do that. Okay, what's your favorite typeface? This one I definitely don't know. Is it Futura, Avenir, Frutiger?
It's Gotham.
Gotham. All right.
And I'm like, I put a ban on myself for using Futura a couple years ago because I was using it so much. And then I moved into Gotham. I'm about to have to put a Gotham band on myself. And the thing is, it's not me like trying to use the same font. It's just like, man, the client's like, can you use that font that you use in that last thing? I'm like, shit, really?
It just works, man. It just works. Utility.
Yeah, it works so well with my work. You know, it's just like it was made to go with my line work. And I've just got to sit down this year. I'm about to go on sabbatical and maybe sit down and draw up my own sans serif font so people won't be like, that's the Gotham guy or that's the Futura guy.
If you ever do, I would plug the shit out of it here for you.
I appreciate that.
Of course, man. All right, if someone offered to buy you a drink, what would it be?
You know, I'm not a drink guy. I'm a beer guy. So I would say
a beer. Beer works too. A beverage.
Yeah, any kind of like fresh IPA that's you know, a double IPA, a single IPA. It's great with me.
All right. Well, where can people go to find you online? And if there's anything cool coming up on the horizon you want to share too, feel free. Okay. You can find me at Brian Steely on Instagram. That's like Steely, like Steely Dan. SteelyWorks.com is my website that I update every year. Me too.
I got to get on that. You can find me on Dribble. I think, what am I, B Steely maybe on Dribble?
I'll link it up in the show notes.
Okay. And that's about it. You can like Google my name and stuff will come up.
Yeah, you'll see the dopest work out there, man.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And likewise. On the horizon, in 3 weeks, I got a 1 month sabbatical where I plan to actually think about stuff for a while and like really like I feel like I know you probably feel the same way with the family, you know, with the kid on the way and all that. I mean, it's like with 2 kids, driving them to sports and my full-time job and then my freelance stuff. It's like I don't have a lot of time to really think. And I want to sit down and like come up with some game plans for Steely Works and like where I want to, you know, the 5-year plan and really hash that out. And just build it out a little bit more. Just cause I haven't had the time.
I can't wait to see what you're whipping up, dude.
I can't wait to see it either. It's got to have to happen.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been awesome actually getting to have a conversation with you without being at a conference, both of us crunk at the moment. So thanks for all the wisdom, the advice, all the knowledge you dropped on everyone today. Like, we sincerely appreciate your time.
Thank you, Scotty, man. It was a blast.
All right, man. We'll keep in touch.
All right.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
All right, folks, Brian Steely. He's the kind of dude you can't help but like, as his work is insanely inspiring, yet behind this massive wall of talent is just a normal, down-to-earth human being. He's someone you should definitely get familiar with, and don't be afraid to shoot him a thanks if you found value in his episode today. And moving on to this week's dose of inspiration, this one goes out to my buddy Brad at Graphic Design 79, syncs up with episode 79, but Brad and I go back a few years on Instagram, and it's just been an absolute trip to watch his style rapidly evolve, like going from Charmander straight to Charizard and skipping that second evolution. I'm especially vibing to his 36 Days of Type series, as each letter and number is something different than the previous one, and he will definitely keep you on your toes. Again, follow him at Graphic Design 79. Next, I want to talk about the Facebook community. So if you're looking for accountability, a place to share your work, people to collaborate with, give and receive solid feedback, or get access to resources that'll elevate your creative craft, then I encourage you to check out the Perspective-Collective Facebook group. We have a thriving community building right now, and we would love to have you be a part of the family. Hop on Facebook and search for The Perspective-Collective to get involved with some rad people. If you're enjoying what you hear and you want to support the growth of this show, I have a few ways you can make this happen. The first way is by becoming a backer at patreon.com. Not only can you donate per episode with as little as much as your weekly cup of coffee, but I do my best to hook you up with some rewards, so it's a win-win. And the second way to support the show is for you crypto heads out there. In the show notes for each episode, I'll have addresses for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin if you prefer to go that route. And finally, if you could please subscribe and leave a ratings and review on Apple Podcasts, that would be super swell of you. It not only helps the show get discovered, but it allows it to climb up in the rankings as well. And as I wrap things up, I want to give a huge thanks to Áine Brennan for making this episode sound so good. And a huge thanks goes to Nick Jenkins of Blookah for all the dope theme music you hear on this show. You can find him on SoundCloud or on Instagram at Blookah, that's BLOOKAH. And as you finish off your week strong, I want to encourage you to keep showing up, keep putting in the work, and keep creating. You got this.